We good? Okay. So hi everyone, good morning. My name is Matan from DAOstack, and I will tell you this morning about, oh, I have actually this guy, great, about living DAOs, and we'll see what's that. Oh. Like that, okay. So, this is roughly my plan. It's tentative, we can change it as you want. I'll give you a little bit glimpses of the problem, and I'm saying glimpses because I would not try to paint a coherent, complete picture. It will literally be glimpses, and then you can extrapolate to the big picture, but I hope it transfers something. And maybe some glimpses of the solution, and again, this would not be a complete picture, it will be just ideas. I will then tell you a little bit about the forefront of experimentation, where we are at right now, what we achieved in the last 6 months in that regard, and then maybe some hinting for some big steps moving forward. And finally, we'll speak about building bridges. Okay, so let's start. So I would like to start saying that we are under attack. I repeat, we are under attack. So what do we mean by that? So, I'll do this because I actually need to look at my slide. But basically, power locking, there is a huge amount of power locking due to the network effects that we are all familiar with, such as Facebook, Uber, Airbnb, and so on, and then which leaves no room for competition, and it opens up the door for user abuse. So you all know this is the situation where Facebook initially, in its first stage, has the incentives aligned with the users, all the users come, then there is a critical mass, then there is a network effect, then user cannot leave, then Facebook's interests are different, they want to grow economic value, which even if it's completely opposite with the interest of the users. So this is a known thing. Another fact, huge actors have the power to corrupt governmental agencies or agents to bend the rules in their favor, thus increasing their power. This happens all the time. Dairy companies that put lobby on the government, change the rules, and eventually become monopolies. Another fact, huge actors have the power and incentive to misinform the general public, leading to systematic distortion of truth. Do you think that the biggest oil companies will distribute the truth about renewable energy, sustainable energy? Clearly they don't, and they have a lot of power and lobby and economic resources spent on distributing the wrong truth, and that's why we have a continuous distortion of truth. And most importantly, with any systematic way to abuse the system and gain power, and in crypto economics we have a very clear name for that. We call that attack vectors. The attacker gets stronger, and over time, bad actors win the game. So I would argue that we are under constant attack, and bad actors are winning the game. And the common denominator of all of those examples, and again, these are just glimpses, is that they're all relying on centralized structures. So let's see that. Or maybe firstly, the claim. So upscaling or wide-scaling centralized structures constantly increases the misalignment of interest between interacting agents, resulting in a lesser and lesser efficiency. So that's the situation right now. So let's see. So power locking due to network effects. Why don't we have user-owned network effects? If Facebook is owned by its user, then the added value that they have from having a better platform compensate for the downside of having maybe slightly less share value, and that's all users are voting for a better platform. Why won't we have utilities and regulation operated by DAOs rather than centralized governments? Less corruptible. Why don't we have wide-scale decentralized curation network that can curate the truth, the content, and the thing that people are relying on to understand the reality? And finally, any decentralized systems are much more resilient than centralized one. And that's categorically true. Okay, so now I'm just pausing for a moment from the big picture, and I will tell you the 1-minute summary of DAOstack. I won't get into it. I've spoken yesterday a lot about holographic consensus. I've spoken exactly here a year ago about the DAOstack, so I'll just give you a 1-minute summary. So it goes like that. You have the DAOstack, which you can see here. It's a full operational stack all the way from the blockchain level to the app level, eventually DAOs. It's right now in the mainnet and operational. You have the ARC framework over here. Let me see, over here, which is basically a complete framework for governance on the blockchain. So you can build with it any sort of governance protocol that you wish on the blockchain. And then specifically, we've implemented this family of holographic consensus protocol, and specifically the MVP, which is the Genesis protocol. I just described that in length yesterday, which is essentially implemented here in this primitive layer infra. I won't elaborate on it here, but just to say that that kind of protocols allow for large-scale effective coordination. Then we have Alchemy, which is our native interface in the dApp layer. So this is Alchemy. Basically, it allows interaction of users with a DAO and operating a DAO. And finally, we have the Genesis DAO, which is our kind of like native DAO of the DAOstack project, and I will speak more about that. And there are a few more layers that I'm not mentioning because they are less important right now. Okay, so the first stage was to put up Alchemy at alpha, so it was just an alpha product. It works on the mainnet, it works nicely, but it's still clunky, it's slow, maybe not well designed, and we had that. So I just presented the pre-alpha here exactly a year ago, I think in April. Then we've launched the alpha on August. We ran it for 5 months with a user base of like 100 users, and then right now it's down, and we're launching soon the beta. So the first stage was Alchemy Alpha with Genesis Alpha. This is the first experiment, the first true DAO experiment. Actually, 100 people operating as a DAO. So that's how it looked like. So this is a real snapshot actually from today. The system is down, but you can still browse it and see, for example, the histories. These are the proposals, the beneficiaries, and everything. And you see the beta. It's much more designed. Okay, so this is the summary of what we have achieved or experienced in 5 months of operation of Genesis. So firstly, there were 230 produced proposals, out of which 121 got approved by the DAO. These proposals, many of them, by the way, many of those proposals were just growing the DAO. So we started with 54 members, and we grew the DAO to 123 members, and every such new member had to come in, submit a proposal, I want to become a member, I want to get reputation or voting power, and, well, being approved, most of the time being approved. So you can see that many of those proposals, about half of the past proposals were proposals to ask for reputation, and then the other half was mostly about funding. So around 60 proposals were about funding, basically spending around 60 Ether every month. So at the time it was like $13,000 every month, quite effectively, and you'll see why. And then it kept very much decentralized. So there is some reputation flow. You can come in and get new reputation, but you can also gain more reputation if you're kind of like good behaving in the system. If you're making proposals that are passing, you get some reputation. If you are voting in line with the DAO, you're getting some reputation, etc., etc. And then still, the DAO remained very decentralized, and the largest individual reputation holder or voting power holder holds 3.2% of the reputation, and most users hold between 0.7 to 3.2% of reputation. Okay, and we got some results, which I think is very impressive for like a very first experiment and such a small funding. Just to mention a few, so we got 2 interfaces developed. Of course, they are still very, very preliminary, but we actually got 2 working interfaces developed by the crowd, by the community. One is a DAO Explorer, when you can kind of like explore all of the proposals and see slices and so on and so forth. And another one is DAO Initiator, where you can open up your own DAO, because when we set up the system, you couldn't open up your own DAO from the interface. We did that from the back end, and now some people build an interface for that. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, we've got 5 meetups organized, about 2 books and numerous articles published, podcasts, videos, and other content, including even a digital portrait of Vitalik. This is real. This is handily created, digitally created, and it was auctioned, or well, it was offered as a competition, and 10 people actually won that wonderful prize, not including Adam, who tried every possible mean to win one of them. And then ongoing bi-monthly funded working group, and then finally many norms and non-financial agreements which have passed. And also one hack. So we're launching soon, I'll tell you more about that. We're launching a big program. It's the DXDAO together with Gnosis. And well, this will be having quite a large stake. So we want to make sure that the contract is as safe as possible. We did 2 professional audits with one of the best audit security teams in the world. Then we said, okay, it's probably not enough. Let's put the contract out there. Let's put a lot of money on the contract as honeypots and just invite hackers, please come and take that money. And they did. So there was a very big honeypot, very incredible community review. 2 critical bugs were found, and one was exploited, and 121 Ether were taken in a very elegant hack, which was amazing. That was the absolutely best code review we could ever have. And now we are getting into a next phase where we are doing again a professional audit. We're just completing it. Then again a large honeypot with the community reviewing it and hopefully taking some money. Sorry, hopefully not taking some money and we find it clean. But if they take money, it's better than take it now rather than take it later. Curiosity. There was a huge argument, so it looks like that. There was a huge argument between 2 groups in the DAO which could not decide about whether to vote yes or no on a certain proposal. The argument was because the proposal was wanted to get, I think, like 25% of the whole budget of the DAO for a few months. So it was 50 Ether. And we have this mechanism, if the vote is not well decided, at the end period of the voting period, the vote shifts from a yes to no or vice versa, then the vote extends in another period. We call it the quiet ending period. And this quiet ending period resulted with 18 flips of decisions in the last few days. And such a great engagement so that 42% of all reputation holders actually voted on that vote, which shows us two things. One, is really great to have these kind of like conflicting proposals that get so much attention, but the other interesting thing is that even that got only 42% of all DAO reputation, which really shows you that you have to have a mechanism to allow for proposal to be approved with a relative majority rather than absolute majority, and that's exactly the case, or that's exactly the purpose for holographic consensus. Another curiosity, we had 2 spin-offs, so the D-Org, incredible team that is now building independently their own solutions on top of the DAO stack, and then we have the DAO incubator that maybe are here in the audience, which is, again, an amazing team that is kind of like doing activities in DAOs. Okay, so we're done with Alchemy Alpha. I think now it's time for Alchemy Beta. And here we're talking about living DAOs in production. So let's see what it means. So these are mockups. I really wanted to show you a demo, but we're just a few weeks, maybe a couple weeks behind schedule to actually show you a demo. So rather than that, I'll just show you mockups. But just imagine that this is the app, and I'm actually pressing the button and moving between the screens, so it's almost like a real thing. So this is Alchemy. This is Alchemy Beta, and here you can see all of the DAOs that are actually coming alive on the platform. So very soon we have Genesis Alpha. Yeah, it will be still Genesis Alpha for some time until we upgrade it to Genesis Beta, but it will be Genesis Alpha 2.0. Then we have the DXDAO, the amazing DAO with Gnosis that will control the duck checks. I will tell about maybe slightly more about that. Just to say that already this version of the platform will enable the DAO to do any activity, any transaction on the blockchain, which means that the DAO can also control yet another smart contract, in this case, the DutchX platform. So the DAO is the full owner of the DutchX platform. It can press buttons there. It can token whitelist. It can whitelist tokens in the platform. It can change the protocol. It can take a cut from the fees in the platform and take it to itself to fund development. Then we have EthPhoenix, which are launching a big kind of like community DAO, and Polkadot which is a portion of the Polkadot or Web3 grant program managed decentralizedly by the community. And then we have Psychedelic Society and Liberland, also very exciting DAOs coming up. Then if you just press on the DXDAO, you would see something like that. So you can see that here you have a different governance scheme. So in the DAO, you may have different queues or governance channels through which you can operate. So different governance channels can allow the DAO to do different things, and maybe via different conditions. So for example, this channel over here is a contribution reward. Through this channel, you can ask the DAO to reward Ether or tokens or reputation to a certain contributing agent that has placed some contribution. Through this scheme over here, you can make a protocol upgrade, which means you can propose to the DAO to actually change the protocol, its own protocol. And over here, it's a governance channel through which you can make proposal to govern the Dutch X and basically operate any function that the Dutch X allow you to operate. Then if you just click on the contribution reward, you'll get something like that. This is the screen of all proposals. Again, I won't get into it, but yesterday I've described in details how holographic consensus works, and you'll find that there is a queue of regular proposals, and then there is pending proposals, which means that they are just about to be boosted if they will maintain their condition, and finally the boosted proposal, which are open for a short finite time and decided about but with relative majority. So you can see here the different proposals. You can then click on a single proposal and see this kind of screen. So this screen will tell you all of the details of the proposals, the details of the staking, the predictions that were placed on that proposals that got it boosted, and then the voting status of that proposal, when it ends and everything, and there is also a commenting thread over here that the user can speak about that certain proposal. So we're getting back to the contribution reward scheme, and we can also make a new proposal. We can submit a new proposal. So we can, we can title it, we can put a URL that describes it in more details. We can put the beneficiary, because it's contribution reward, then it's just that you're asking for something, you're asking for funds or for reputation. So here you're saying what you're asking for and how much, and the beneficiary key or the name of that user. We're getting back to contribution reward, and now we're getting back to the DXDAO, and let's just one more click to go to the Dutch X. So here you can see the proposal to operate the Dutch X platform. You can whitelist some tokens, for example. You can change the protocol logic, such as taking a fee cut to the DAO, and you can also change parameters on the platform, such as increasing the threshold to start an auction on the Dutch X. And we can also explore all of the list of reputation holders and the reputation distribution and so on and so forth. So this will be, there are more packed in the app, but this is kind of like pretty exemplifying. Okay, so what we are going to do with that? So firstly, our own Genesis beta. So what's the purpose of Genesis to begin with? So the Genesis DAO was from the beginning about fully decentralizing the project. So we look ahead, I don't know if it's 1, 2, or 5 years, we'll see about the technology, but we aspire to have the complete project managed and with all of its funds managed by a DAO. So for that, we are progressing from Genesis Alpha to Genesis Beta, and we imagine Genesis Beta to be an alliance of basically all of the contributors to this program, all of the contributors to this ecosystem. So contributing builders, distributed teams and individuals, such as ourselves, the.org, and other teams, Gnosis, early adopters, individuals, and DAOs. So we have many early users that are participating, but we also have many early DAO adopters. So such as the DXDAO will get reputation maybe in that alliance, or the Polka DAO, or the Liberland DAO, and so on and so forth. We actually want the project to be run by its users. So these are our users. Then, of course, long-term holders who are making that possible. So if, perhaps if you'd stake your gen for just enough time, you'll get some reputation also because you're aligning the incentive in the long term. And altogether, we will strive to build this DAO ecosystem using its own product. So please join us in the Genesis DAO if you are, decentralized governance practitioners, legal and scientific researchers. Please join us if you are builders, content writers, designer, biz dev, any sort of doers in that space. And of course, if you want to build your own DAO, please join the Genesis, because that's a DAO for the builders of DAOs. You can find us very easily in the daostack.io/community, or simply just above that door at our booth in EthCC. Almost to the end, so this is my last topic. I want to use that opportunity to call out for our friends in Aragon, Kleros, Colony, Fermin, BridgeDAO, Pando, and many, many others, because I think one of the strategic goals for this year, for ourselves, and I hope for the rest of the ecosystem, is to start building bridges. There are amazing technology out there right now for DAOs. There is DAOstack with very, very generic framework. There is Aragon with absolutely amazing OS system for DAO. There is Kleros with beautiful beta level product, which is going live as well right now. Colony with the great talk that Daniel gave us today with Budget Box. There is, I just got to know more about Fairmint and BridgeDAO, amazing project, as well as Pando, and many, many others. Now it's the time to start building bridges, and we'll actively start to support these efforts, but hopefully by the community themselves. And that's about it. Thank you. Okay, if there any, we have time maybe for 1 or 2 questions, if there's any. Yeah.
So if I have a client who is running on Stellar and who is interested, do you hear me now?
Yeah.
If I have a client who is running on Stellar and he has a couple of assets and he is interested in doing something like a decentralized, like a DAO, how do you see these kind of projects fit in your ecosystem? Is this something that is only capable of supporting Ethereum-based communities, or is it...
so I just didn't hear decentralized what?
DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, like governance, like
sure.
decentralized governance.
So you want to run your own DAO?
No, my question is, you have a running system on Stellar, for example, Stellar Lumens.
Okay.
And you want to have some kind of decentralized governance.
Yes.
And I, for example, like your idea. How do I connect these two worlds? Can I do that in a way?
Sure.
In any way?
I mean, again, I'm not sure I understood your use case, but yeah, if you have a certain use case that is running somewhere and you just want to connect, all this is very, very, very integrable. It's very easy to integrate it. It's very easy to open a DAO. In fact, it's a click of a button to open a DAO, or if you wish a transaction to open a DAO, and we'll soon have also the interface that helps you just to open it from, from a user interface perspective. Then to connect the system to that DAO is very easy. You just need to, but I'm not sure I understood the specific use case. So I'm not sure if I'm answering correctly, if anyone has heard it properly. Oh, cross-blockchain, thank you. Yeah, so we have this year, another strategic goal for this year is to start going cross-blockchain. So I can just share with you that we got requests from a bunch of other blockchains to develop the same infrastructure there, and then of course adding cross-blockchain. We ourselves are not going to work on or not planning right now to work on a cross-blockchain technology. What we can do is to develop our system on different blockchains and then use existing or coming up technology, cross-blockchain technology, in order to connect those platforms. We can make them not just islands, but or multiplication, but rather interoperable. And I believe that will happen. I'm not sure if it will happen that year, because I'm not sure the cross-blockchain technology is mature enough, but probably, if not that year, probably the next year.
So you mentioned that the purpose of Genesis DAO is to decentralize the project ultimately. How do you think about seeding that as an incentive, like as a direction for the DAO? How do you create that as the main goal?
That's a great question. That's a really big question. Okay, so often people say, okay, I want the DAO to do this and that. But there is kind of like oxymoron here, right? Because once the DAO is a DAO, it will do whatever it wants, right? So there are two factors, or three if you wish, that kind of like impact what the DAO will actually do. So, of course, there is the governance protocol, but that's pretty robust. The main thing is the reputation distribution. If you allocate reputation to the right people, so to say, or the people with which the interest are, the shared interest of those people is the interest that you're trying to promote, then there is a good chance that that DAO will follow that trajectory. Or for example, if you're trying to say, let's have the DAO do that or build a better world, and then putting an initial reputation distribution that is completely not aligned with that, the DAO will always follow, the incentives. It will never follow the theme over the incentive. So you want to place the initial conditions such that the incentives are most aligned with your goal. That's one. The second thing is more social, and that's a culture that you can create. Like you can create a very strong shilling point. If you're founding the DAO with a purpose, then, well, those who are aligned with that purpose will come in. Those who are not aligned, will get out. So there is a strong bias, and also there is a shilling point because if I know that everyone are thinking about that goal, I will be biased to think about that goal as well. So there is a strong shilling point, cultural shilling point. So these are two important elements: creating the right shilling point in terms of initial condition, in terms of culture, and in terms of initial condition, in terms of incentive and reputation distribution. This is really important. That's exactly why we want to distribute reputation in Genesis Beta, not just to just random people or to ourselves. We actually want to all contributors of this DAO also moving forward. So users, early DAOs, builders, and so on and so forth. And of course, we also want, maybe just one more thing, we also want them to be staked in and have the interest to grow the project. So we want those early users to also hold or actually lock or hodl gens. So either they have gens and they are locking them, or we give them locked gens such that they are all having shared interest. But it's a great point, and one of the most, I think, overlooked ones. Thank you very much.